What is up, guys? Thank you for stopping by SteadyChaos Productions. I am your man, SteadyChaos, and tonight what I wanted to bring to you is a new video regarding the ever-controversial HDMI cables. Now, regardless of what you think about HDMI cables, there are plenty of people out there who think that HDMI cables have an ability to improve audio or visual quality, while there are other people out there who think you're absolutely insane for spending more than 30 or 40 bucks on an HDMI cable. In my experience, what I have found with standard HDMI cables, meaning copper-based HDMI cables that use electricity transmitted along copper lining inside an HDMI cable, what I've experienced over the course of many years with many sources and many displays owning dozens of different HDMI cables ranging from cheap $5 cables all the way up to $40 or $50 HDMI cables is that there's not really any difference in video or audio quality for the most part. HDMI cables, think of them sort of as a pipe. You have a source, which in this case can be a Blu Ray player or like a PlayStation, and then you have an output, which can be your television or your monitor. And that HDMI cable is the intermediary between the source and the output, and it's basically just a pipe. It takes that digital information, those ones and zeros, and it sends it through the pipe from the source to the output, and bam, you have an image. It either works or it doesn't. I'm sure many of you have heard this before. But that doesn't stop some companies from releasing $2,300 HDMI 2.0 cables.
Good God.
Oh my God, I'm sure most of you people out there who even know the slightest bit of information about audiovisual equipment will agree and understand that you don't spend that type of money on an HDMI cable. You are essentially being bamboozled if you are spending that type of money on an AudioQuest Diamond HDMI cable, for example, which is, I think, the 3-meter long, 9-foot Diamond HDMI cable is $2,300. That is absolute sheer and utter insanity. They claim that it helps to improve audio reproduction because it's lined with a certain percentage of silver, which is a better conductor than copper. That may be the case, but it's still digital information. It's still sending information along these metallic lines via electricity impulses. Really, if you're going to get a $10 HDMI cable that's copper and a $2,300 copper/silver HDMI cable from AudioQuest, for the most part, you're going to have the same audio-visual reproduction. It's digital, it's ones and zeros, it works or it doesn't. If your HDMI cable is faulty, it most likely won't work at all. You'll have a blank screen, or if it's starting to go faulty or break down, your cable that is, you may start to experience some flashes on your screen indicating that it's time to switch out the HDMI cable. So, with that said, my advice to you, if you are a novice in the AV community, if you're looking to learn more about HDMI cables and how they work, and whether or not you should spend $200 or $300 on an HDMI cable, especially a copper one, don't do it. Don't do it. Get something from Amazon, like an Amazon Basics cable that's $5, $10, $15, and it will serve you just fine. But that's not what this video is about. Not specifically anyway. This video is about the new type of HDMI cable that a lot of people have seen floating around the last 3, 4, 5 years, and that is the fiber optic HDMI cable. This is not your traditional metallic-based transmission of data type cable. This doesn't use copper or silver like the AudioQuest Diamond does. This uses fiber optic glass to transmit the signal via laser or light, and a lot of manufacturers claim that this creates a better visual picture, and especially a visual picture that is not susceptible to signal attenuation over long distances, and one that is also not susceptible to static interference from other electrical sources that might be behind your entertainment stand. So, knowing myself that I am an audiovisual technophile, anything and everything that has to do with visual quality with my new LG C10, I want to try to maximize. So I thought to myself, the PlayStation 5, the Xbox Series X are coming out soon. How do I ensure that I am maximizing my visual quality? So, maybe I've been bamboozled, I don't know. I decided to go out and get a fiber optic HDMI cable. I purchased the Ruipro HDMI cable, and I will have links in the description below if you are interested in purchasing this cable. I want to say it was $140 to get the 9-foot Ruipro fiber optic HDMI 2.1 cable, mind you. The LG C10 is 2.1 compatible, and the next generation consoles are also going to be 2.1 compatible. So that is why I got a 2.1 compatible HDMI cable, which is, I believe, 48 gigabits of bandwidth. But I also wanted to see if there was any difference between a standard copper HDMI cable or silver HDMI cable and this newer type of cable, the fiber optic cable. So what I've done is I've taken my 4K camera here and I have run some video on my LG C10 using my Sony X800 4K Blu Ray player and the movie Aquaman. It is a 4K UHD movie. So like I said, I took my camera, I pointed it right at the TV, and what I did is I recorded one clip with the copper HDMI cable. It's like a 3 or so minute clip. And then I recorded that same clip with the fiber optic cable. None of the settings in the camera have been changed or manipulated in any way, and none of the settings on the TV have been changed or manipulated in any way. All of the settings are exactly the same for both video clips with both HDMI cables. And then what I did is I split the screen in half, and I put the copper image or video footage and the fiber optic video footage side by side, and I played them to see if there was any difference whatsoever in the visual quality. I'm not so much interested in the audio quality in this particular comparison. We can maybe save that for another demo and another video. But I compared them side by side, and I also will do some full images of the fiber optic, and then right after that I'll run some full images of the copper, so you can get a really good idea if there are any differences between the two. Does one have better color? Does one have better motion? Does one have better clarity? Those are my primary questions with this particular video. So without waiting any longer, I know you guys are itching to see this demo. Let's get right to it. Alright, so as you can see after that video, there really isn't much of a difference between the fiber optic HDMI cable and the much cheaper standard regular copper HDMI cable. I did not notice, especially sitting right in front of the TV, never mind comparing the video image of the copper and fiber HDMI cables in post-production, I didn't notice any difference in color quality. I didn't really notice any difference in clarity. I didn't really notice any difference in sharpness, really, for the most part. I thought everything looked identical. So I think what you can take away from this is, really, yes, maybe you should get an HDMI 2.1 cable for the next generation consoles if you want to make sure you're fully future-proofed. You'd probably still be fine with a 2.0 cable for the most part anyway. But if you want to get a cable, a new HDMI cable for the next gen consoles or for your 2.1 compliant television like the LG C10, then sure, get an HDMI 2.1 cable. However, I would not necessarily recommend you spend $120, $130, $140 on a fiber optic HDMI cable, as in my experience, it makes no difference on visual quality. This is a digital pipe, just like I explained earlier in this video. It is taking the data from the source and it is simply transmitting it to the output. It's either working or it's not, whether it's copper, whether it's fiber. Now, the only caveat I will say here is the one time you may want to get a fiber optic cable is if you have a longer run. So for instance, if your source and your AV rack is in one corner of your room and your television is all the way in the other corner of the room, say it's a 35, 40, 45 foot distance. In that respect, you may want to get a fiber optic cable, as there's proven to be less signal attenuation over longer runs with fiber optic. If you were to try and run a signal from a source to a television over 45, 50, 55 feet with a standard copper HDMI cable, you most certainly could experience signal loss and image degradation. So that is that one caveat where I say if it's a long run, sure, get a fiber optic cable. Otherwise, anything under 20 feet, 15, 10 feet, don't spend a bunch of money on a fiber optic cable like I did. Don't make the same mistake that I did. Get yourself an Amazon Basics or, slightly more reputable HDMI cable. Maybe spend 15, 20 bucks on an HDMI 2.1 cable, like a Belkin, and you are good to go. So that's pretty much going to do it for me, guys. I hope you enjoyed this comparison. If you liked the video, by all means leave a like, and certainly let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below about this comparison. Do you have a fiber optic cable? Have you noticed any difference between that cable and your older HDMI copper cables? If so, let me know in the comment section down below. And as usual, guys, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and until next time, we will see you later.